Well, now we're going to take a look at the challenges facing people with albinism in Africa. Esther, what do you have for us?
Well, Vincent, the plight of people with albinism across Africa remains a huge challenge. And in some cases, they're hunted down for their body parts, which are in turn used for ritual purposes. I spoke to one young woman from Kenya whose organization is making a difference for people just like her. Jane Waithera runs Positive Exposure Kenya, an organization whose aim is to improve the quality of life for persons with albinism in Africa. She says no African leader has come out to openly condemn the killings and atrocities committed on people with albinism.
We don't possess any supernatural power or any magical healings or anything of the sort that they hunt us down for.
In Tanzania, the problem is particularly dire, and for years people with albinism have been killed while many others have been maimed. Anganile Thompson is a journalist working with the Tanzanian Broadcasting Corporation. He says people with albinism encounter even more problems during election season.
For some strange reason, it does come to rise up during elections because there are some uninformed politicians who feel like using these body parts to people with albinism will give them more popularity, wealth.
Even though there have been rare cases of people with albinism killed in Kenya, Jane Waithera says her organization's work transcends the borders of the country, and she has personally seen people who have survived the violent attacks but were left without arms and legs.
I know the seriousness of the matter, and for me, my message back home is the killings and atrocities against persons with albinism have to stop now. I'm gonna get more aggressive and have policies around the topic.
Generally seen as a peaceful country in the East African region, the killing of albinos in Tanzania is negating that image. And as October's general elections draw near, people with albinism are frightened. Anganile Thompson says the violence against albinos is hurting Tanzania's image.
It's been very troubling times in my country, a very bad chapter. You know, generally Tanzania is a very peaceful country, but this has sort of given a negative view of the world towards Tanzania.
And at a recent presidential summit in Washington, D.C., U.S. President Barack Obama said the idea that a society would commit violence on people because of pigmentation is not a tradition worth preserving.
When I was in Africa, I said, you know, there are important traditions and folkways that need to be respected. That's part of who each culture is, each country is. But there's also just foolish traditions and old ways of doing business that are based in ignorance. And they need to stop.
During the summit, Waithera requested President Obama to raise the issue with African heads of state to bring atrocities against persons with albinism to an end. And the president summed it up.
You are strong by taking care of the people who are vulnerable, by looking after the minority, looking after the disabled, looking after the vulnerable.
And as President Obama commented, we can preserve great traditions the world over like music, food, dance, language and art. But if there's a tradition anywhere in the world that involves treating people differently because of who they are, then we ought to challenge it and ultimately do away with it. Now, governments across Africa where people with albinism are threatened need to come up with sound policies to protect them and prosecute those hunting them down for their body parts.